All right, glory to the King. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. Pastor Dowell here. A question come to me, and I'm gonna try to paraphrase it because it's a long question, but it really sums up in this. Pastor Dowell, what does excommunication or excommunicado mean? Well, that means the complete shun or removal of someone from an assembly who have had either repeated immoral practices, conduct unbecoming, determined by the ecclesiastical council to be a detriment to the assembly or people's souls. It could be a plethora of things that the reason why people get excommunicated, but most of it has to do just basically leaving and then being very, I don't know how you call it, hostile, and you could use a whole bunch of things, but it's basically up to the elders of the assembly. And I know that we live in this rebellious world, and most people don't think that the assembly and the private assemblies have any power whatsoever at all. People, we get over in the United States of America, and we got this residue of Christianity on us, and we assume that whatever I want to believe, whatever I want to do, it's right, and all this other stuff. But let me run down a few things for you. One of the greatest sins that take place today in an assembly is people doing that which is right in their own eyes. And we have that problem over here. And the problem is that people err because they don't know the scriptures and the power of Yah. When we look at ancient Israel, it's obvious that when you read the history of those people, they were together. We also know the history of Israel being split under Jeroboam and Rehoboam. All right? Not only do we know the history of Israel being split, but even though they were split, 10 tribes went northern and 2 tribes went southern. And you had the house of Israel and you had the house of Judah. Either way it goes, you still had houses. And so whether Israel was in captivity or not, if they were in captivity, the Egyptian captivity, the Babylonian captivity, the Assyrian captivity, the Greek and Roman captivity, I can go on and on and on. Y'all get it, right? They were still together, separate, and the heathens of the land, or the heathens of these empires, the pagans of these empires, made sure that while these people was yet functioning, they pretty much made a distinction upon them and let them know that some way, somehow, you're here in this land, but you're not part of us. And of course, some of the heathen people would thought that, they said, man, we got a couple of intelligent Israelites right here, so we can bring them into our particular nation, our culture and stuff, and assimilate them, because they'll be a benefit to us. And then the ones that not benefit, then you can just leave them down there and let them be vine dressers. Well, as we fast forward, we know that we're in a diaspora. Now, the diaspora means the scattering abroad. That means Israel has since then been scattered to the 4 corners of the earth. And when people get scattered, they embrace basically teachings and doctrines that suit them as opposed to the word. Well, when you get to the New Testament, we see that when Jesus was here on this earth, Israel was still together. And that's what I'm trying to emphasize more than anything. They were still together, but they were under Roman occupation while in their own land. And then, of course, Titus came, sacked Jerusalem, and then scattered the Israelites even more. So by the time Paul got on the scene, if you notice, when he made his missionary journeys to the so-called quote-unquote alleged Gentiles, he went to Ephesus, Philippi, Colossus, Thessalonica. You can see all these different places, Galatia. You can see all these different places that Paul went. But watch this. Even in those places, he didn't go to an individual Israelite home or to an individual Israelite person. Read the New Testament. They had assembly in their houses because they had no synagogue, they had no church buildings, they had no temples. So they would meet in their homes. Who would? The Israelites would. And Paul would often inquire when he go into these different provinces, these different states, where would the Israelites abide? Those that are believers in Messiah, been filled with the Holy Spirit and keep the commandments. And so when you read the New Testament, you often see that they had church in their home. That's how the New Testament or the King James put it. They had church in their house, church in their house. Then he would actually name people, salute certain people, greet Aquila and Priscilla, my fellow helpers in the Most High. But then Paul would also give out direction when you would have disorder, when you would have chaos, when you would have people who would not want to submit. And that's the problem we have today. People get new ideas, people get rebellious, people get stubborn whenever judgments don't go their way, and now all of a sudden they are the sum of all wisdom and epitome of all righteous while in rebellion. And so then you'll get people that would divide the assembly and stuff because, like Diopetres, he loved to have the preeminence. Hey, he prated against John and all of them with malicious words. Demas at one time was there, then he forsook Paul and the actual work because he loved this present world. And so you get people that will come to assembly and say that, you know what, Jesus brought me here. They will say that, you know what, I would rather go to hell than to ever break covenant with y'all. People say that. They say stuff like that. Now, I personally, I'm not toying around with this hell stuff. I would never, ever say anything gendering to hell just to try to state a point, because none of us get to determine which way we're going. That's ultimately up to the creator of the universe, the Most High Yah. But I am not going to be talking like it, because by your words, you're justified, and by your words, you're condemned. I'm not talking like it. I'm fearful of the Most High Yah. But nevertheless, so you'll see people that would defect, like Barnabas with Paul. And you would hear nothing else about Barnabas because they didn't have social media today. And if we didn't have social media, then you wouldn't hear a lot about a lot of people today either. But anyway, and of course, then you would get Paul that will start putting out mandates and orders to the assemblies as he began to teach them the ways of God. He would tell them, man, you mark them that cause division. Yeah, you mark them, you shun them, you get them away from you. Can you imagine doing that today? Well, I'm still serving y'all even though I'm not with you. Well, that ain't what you said when you was with us, but see, that's the attitude that people take on, showing you that the rebellion is complete. I mean, the book in Hebrews says, remember them that have to rule over you and submit yourself. They must watch for your soul, that they must give an account. It says, obey them that have to rule over you and submit yourself. Remember them that have to rule, over you, that have spoken to you the word of Yah, whose faith follow. And you watch the majority of these people that actually defect from the assemblies and then have this chaotic insanity of a mindset. They try to influence others, and then they end up going out and getting scattered, just like it says in the book of Acts. And many people would follow certain ways, and then next thing you know, they're scattered and they are dispersed. And you can read these things over and over again, yet people today do not equate what they read with what has been spoken about in the Word, because they ignore those parts, because nobody today ever says, that's me, I'm part of the scattering. That's me, I'm part of the division. But see, Yah in every providence, in every way, being like little sanctuaries, each one of us, he's established order. Can you imagine Paul coming today and say, you mark that man, you mark that man, you mark that man? Boy, Paul would have a social media firestorm, wouldn't he? It still doesn't change the fact that those men of Yah in those days had rights and authority, granted by Yahshua, and he backed up their words. Not only that, Paul had young helpers in the Most High Yah, like such as Titus and Timothy, who he would actually give counsel and give direction when you go into these cities. Ordain elders in each one of these cities, and here are the qualifications. This is what you look for, and why? Because you need leadership. And some people would have you to think they would have you go out and be vagabonds. And so now what we have is a bunch of vagabond nomad people Some have been excommunicated, excommunicado, and I think that is something that definitely needs to be. It's already been in place in the book, but it's something that needs to be reinstitutionalized. When people leave and they defect, if you can find them, if you can get an address for them, you need to try to make sure that they get a letter of excommunication so that you'll know and the assemblies will know. And what we're going to be doing is Straitway is we're going to actually make it known, and we're going to make a particular post somewhere, some way, so that people will know who to shun and who has been excommunicated or who has been excommunicado from the ministry, so that you can shun them and avoid them. Now, today, people, they well, I ain't got to shun them, I ain't got to avoid them. Well, wait a minute. If they've been excommunicated from the assembly, and that's what the instructions and order was given 2,000 years ago, and we're practicing and doing the same things today, how can you be in fellowship with those people if you're in fellowship with us? See, Paul made a distinction. He made a separation. Now, I'm coming with book, y'all. You can start over in Romans chapter 16 with all this if you want to. Matter of fact, you might as well start Romans 15 and read 15 and 16 if you want to get a good understanding of it. And that's why I don't understand the mindset of people today, because, again, our problem is everybody's doing that which is right in their own eyes. People just come up with stuff on their own. They conjure up stuff. And most of it comes from an offense or either previous teachings and doctrines that they held before, and they hold fast to these things. But Paul, man, I'm telling you, that man, as a chief apostle, man, he had authority. And he flat out, man, even one time confronted Peter to him face because he was meant to be blamed. And I tell you, we don't have that kind of honor and discipline and integrity today. So that's why I tell people, if we tell y'all don't listen to these people, they've been shunned, they've been excommunicated, they have chose to leave, and they are defecting, and they are actually being a cancer. They are vagabonds. They are no bad people running around without any headship, any authority or whatsoever at all. They don't submit to anyone. I mean, submit yourselves one to another in the fear of God. They're not going to do that. No, they're going to try to appeal to the flesh of people in rebellion to do everything they can to make sure. Now, their souls is the one that's being destroyed. But, man, I figure that people, you got to put a higher value on your relationship with y'all and the order he has set up. And you got to hold fast to that thing. And the only acid test there really is fruit. By that fruit, you're going to know them. But no, we've excommunicated people. I'm going to make sure we have a post up somewhere. We're going to put a list up, and we're going to have it named in there so people, I mean, you can tell them all day long, but people don't get it once you have been excommunicated from the assembly, because the Most High Yah sent you to a lot of places, and some of you have been to places and been kicked out. Some of you been put out. Some of you decide to leave, and you are just nomads. You can't find peace or a home with any believers whatsoever at all, no matter where you go. And never once will you actually look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm the trouble. I'm the fault. I've been living 50 years, and I still can't find fellowship with no one that I can be at peace with. What a sad commentary. It's just sad. And, of course, but to you, y'all all right. That ain't what the book says. I'm telling y'all right now, you better find a biblical commandment-keeping assembly, and you better get your heart right. You better get your heart right. You better get with the program. If you believe what the word says, it's time to start living it. Submit yourselves one to another in the fear of Yah. Submit yourself to every ordinance of man. I can go on. Submit yourselves for they watch for your soul, as they that must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, because it's unprofitable to you. Listen, I don't make no mistake about ever, whatsoever at all. I make no mistake. I make no apologies whatsoever at all at making sure that people in Israel, especially in Straitway, because that's my charge. When I've excommunicated and I've shunned and I've marked people, I mean business. And if they've been marked, that means you ought to not have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. That means they are cut off. Now, go check this message out with the word. Check it, test it, and see if it stands the acid test of truth, because I know it does. And then get back with me. Anyway, y'all have a blessed day. King coming.